Discover the inspiring moment. Mute CEO's daughter reveals her voice, thanks to a surprising platform. Sarah crouched beside a sleek, aluminum desk in her father's world of steel and screens, her heart thumping against her ribcage. She had always carried the weight of silence, her mutism a suffocating shadow cast by a towering corporate empire. In this fortress of technology, she felt invisible as the wealth around her swirled like a tempest of ambition and disconnect. Today, however, her untouched world of art bridged a path to fragmentary inspiration. Those vibrant strokes of paint on canvas she'd hid away were inching into her mind. Her father's success engulfed her like a tidal wave, and she couldn't help but feel resentment bubble beneath her quiet facade. Rising from her knees, Sarah's fingers brushed against something cool and unfamiliar, a tablet left on the desk, gleaming like a beacon of promise. As she scrolled through the app, her breath caught. The colors and designs mirrored the very essence of her artistic voice, reflecting her style nestled within the confines of her father's empire. Could it be? Her art merged with his creation? A bitter edge of disbelief turned her stomach. She wasn't just a shadow. Fragments of her vibrant world seeped into his profitable enterprise, unseen. Her heart raced with ambition and anxiety. What if she stepped forward? The world beyond her father's corporate realm felt jagged and unforgiving, especially to someone like her. They wouldn't understand the constant pressure of being the CEO's daughter, stung like icy needles whenever she thought of presenting her artwork. The choking sense of inadequacy was as loud as a thunderstorm in her ears, drowning out any desire to shine. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With her retired mentor as comforting guidance, she prepared her presentation. Every curve of her paintbrush held the weight of her spirit, a silent shout for validation. But doubt twisted in her mind as she faced the skeptics at her father's company. Would they respect her work, or merely brush it off as nepotism? One day, standing before her father's assembled team, she envisioned the dismissive glances, business suits glancing over her, as if she were a quaint distraction in a world of serious innovations. The thought curdled in her gut, yet it was during a late-night moment of solitude when the unbearable anguish reached a boiling point. She stood in front of her easel, stifling the swell of emotion behind her silence. How desperately she craved acknowledgement, not just as the CEO's daughter, but as an artist in her own right. Would her father see her for who she truly was, or would he remain blind, imprisoned in his corporate ambitions? It was a specter haunting her narrative, weaving urgency into her art and stoking the fires of discontent. As she stood on the precipice of this monumental moment, Sarah could feel the chasm widen between them. Would she finally confront him about the silence that shaped their relationship? Would she risk it all for a chance to express her heart? The air was thick with unspoken truths, and she took a deep breath, her heart pounding with a blend of fear and resolve, ready to set forth on this journey or retreat back into her muted existence, forever held captive by the weight of silence. Her resolve crystallized in the pale morning light as Sarah rubbed the remnants of her late-night work from her eyes. 3 days remained until her presentation, and she felt time slipping away as if each minute was a brushstroke on a canvas nearly complete yet eluding perfection. Today would be another chance to plot her course, and the stakes loomed larger than ever before. Standing before her easel, the scent of freshly squeezed paint stung her nostrils and fueled her inspiration. Each color echoed her innermost thoughts, a language crafted with vibrant hues and bold strokes. She dipped her brush into the palette, the bristles quivering with anticipation. Perhaps it was time to channel the cacophony of emotions that spun like a wild storm in her heart. What if she wove those feelings directly into her work? Would they unveil the depths of her struggle and awaken the understanding she so desperately desired? As she worked, she couldn't shake the nagging reminder of her father's expectations. He had spent years building an empire. Success rippled through every corner of their lives, shadowing every decision. Yet she was not him. This notion gripped her fiercely, the weight almost unbearable. Why should she conform to a life dictated by his achievements? The audacity of her artistry, her vibrant world, stood at odds with the monochrome corporate ethos he represented. Suddenly, a sense of hope flickered. Instead of burying herself beneath the looming weight of expectations, what if she used them? What if her father's name opened doors rather than closed them? She envisioned the eyes of investors discerning artistry interlaced with technology, the potential for collaboration sparking innovation. Could her voice, though silent in spoken word, find resonance in her art? The brush stilled, poised midair, as fear trickled in. The art she created would be vulnerable, a piece of her soul laid bare. What if her father dismissed her work? What if he never saw the truth she was trying to communicate? Shoving those doubts aside, she took a deep breath. If she dared to express this part of herself, the reward could outweigh the risk. The possibility of being seen flickered like fire against her fears. A fresh resolve enveloped her. She'd share her work and confront her father about their strained connection. Awkward conversations could no longer be swept under the rug. They had stifled her for far too long. This moment needed to bring forth clarity, even if it meant rekindling unresolved pain. Every day she hesitated was a day steeped in unexpressed emotions, a day spent shackled in the iron grip of silence. At the core of the conflict lay her fear of being judged as an artist, of being thought a mere byproduct of her father's success. But what if it worked in her favor? She envisioned her presentation, her art standing as testament to a budding identity. The potential for transformation lay ahead. The very thing that had held her back could allow her to leap forward. Would her father finally acknowledge her strength? Would they bridge the chasm that had grown between them, replacing silence with dialogue? With that thought pulsing in her mind, Sarah forged on. The canvas would not merely carry her colors, it would carry her voice. The time had come for a confrontation about art and silence, about recognition and identity. As she put the final touches on her piece, a longing seized her, the urge to break free from both the silence and the shadow. She would not be captive any longer. As she dried her hands on her apron, one question tore through her mind. How would she weave her truth into the fabric of her father's expectations? Today marked just the beginning, but the real challenge awaited. Would she be bold enough to step into the light and confront the darkness that had held her for so long? Sarah stepped back from her easel, eyes scanning the canvas splashed with her fervent color. It was not just an assortment of pigments. It mirrored the inner tumult she had cultivated for years. Each stroke, a whisper of who she truly was, a woven fabric of dreams and fears she had never shared. Yet, with the impending presentation, she understood the urgency had become more profound than mere artistic expression. Her standing as a daughter, an artist, and a person had coalesced into a singular moment of identity. A knot twisted in her stomach as she envisioned her father's penetrating gaze scrutinizing every line, every curve she had created. Would he see the raw bits of her struggle as powerful, or would he condemn them as juvenile whims? The weight of his expectations loomed heavier than the burden of a canvas, each unresolved question festering in her mind. Determined to unravel herself from this shadow, she took to her sketchbook, respirating life into her thoughts. With an unwavering pen, she wrote down her goals, communicate her truth, open dialogue with her father, redefine success not as him, but as herself. This was less of a list and more of a manifesto, her lifeline for the imminent confrontation. As the hours went by, the sun dipped lower in the sky, pouring molten gold through her window and igniting the room with warmth. It urged her forth, a clear sign that challenges were not obstacles but stepping stones. Each flicker of light coaxed out her insecurities, urging her to peel them away. Perhaps there was strength in leaning into vulnerability. Perhaps every fear held a mirror reflecting her grit. The art gallery awaited, a backdrop for her revelations. She envisioned the stark white walls adorned with bold splashes of color that told the story of her struggle, a narrative that could ignite conversation rather than quash it under corporate paint. Those walls would not just showcase her work. They would stand as her rebellion against a silence too heavy to bear. Taking a moment to breathe deeply, she questioned her motivations more critically. Was she creating merely to escape her father's lofty ideals? Or was there a deeper intention pulsing beneath? The thought of his approval still hung in the air, but its influence dulled against the backdrop of her emerging voice. Her art could serve as a bridge, one she hoped would connect her to him yet define her as separate, the embodiment of her journey toward authenticity. An idea sparked. What if she used her father's business acumen to her advantage? She could frame the presentation as not just an exhibition of personal art, but a merger between tradition and innovation, a new era beckoning through the doorway of her creativity. The notion delighted her. She could emphasize her unique vision, how the blending of his corporate knowledge and her artistic aspirations could yield groundbreaking results. As the day's final glow illuminated her canvas, buoyed by her evolving resolve, she sensed her spirit shifting. Yes, she required the courage to express herself authentically. But she also yearned for recognition of her hard-earned efforts, which weighed heavily alongside the shackles of expectation. It was an intricate dance, her heart pounding, a rhythm fueled by anticipation and dread. Stepping back from the easel, her decision crystallized. She would not only share her art but would announce her intentions to redefine her relationship with her father. He would not only witness her efforts but be invited into a discussion about the legacy she intended to cultivate, one that was hers alone. Just as she felt the newfound strength solidifying within her, her phone buzzed with an incoming message. Without hesitation, she reached for it. It was from her father. "Looking forward to seeing your work this Friday. Let us discuss partnership opportunities." A chill crept up her spine. That simple text bore layers of implications. Would this be a conversation, or would it spiral into another monologue reflecting his vision? She took a breath, poised for either outcome. The excitement mingled with anxiety, flooding her thoughts as she wondered if she was ready to both present her canvas and challenge the very foundation of their relationship. Would this crossroads usher in clarity or chaos? The challenge expanded. She realized her upcoming presentation was more than art. It was redefining the contours of who they both were. How would she confront the complexity of her father's response? The resolution she was building would soon face an unexpected trial. Would that message unravel her plans, or spark the dialogue that had been so desperately needed? The clock was ticking toward Friday, and her journey toward reclaiming her voice had only just begun. Sarah awoke on Thursday morning, the anxiety from the day before still swirling in her mind like the paint on her palette. She could feel the weight of the canvas pressing against her, a not-so-gentle reminder of what loomed just a day away. The words partnership opportunities replayed in her thoughts, taunting her with an array of possible scenarios. Every possible outcome danced before her, a conversation filled with understanding or a discourse saturated in his expectations. The thought churned her stomach. The morning light streamed through her window, illuminating the chaotic studio. Her sanctuary and battleground rolled into one. Brushes lay haphazardly across the table. It was a physical manifestation of the inner turmoil she felt, a symbolic echo of her own scattered sense of self. Would Friday's presentation bring them together, or create an insurmountable divide? Her morning routine felt like a blur as she tried to channel her energy into productive endeavors. She brewed coffee, letting the familiar aroma ground her in the present moment, but the caffeine only added to her jitteriness. Each sip served as a reminder of her dual purpose, to showcase her artistic vision and, at the same time, confront the legacy shaped by her father's ambition. Selecting her outfit proved to be another microcosm of her internal conflict. She sifted through her wardrobe, each piece a potential expression of her identity. Would she choose something bold that showcased her artistry, or lean towards the professional attire that echoed her father's world? As she wrestled with the decision, a realization washed over her. The ideal choice was one that merged both aspects, the artist and the daughter. This was her moment, and she could redefine her identity beyond the expectations tethered to her father's title. As the day progressed, she continued to rehearse her presentation, not just the content of her art but the narrative she intended to weave with every brushstroke, every word. She understood that communicating her truth was more than just showcasing her work. It was about opening the door to a new dialogue. Her sketchbook became filled not only with vibrant visions, but with bullet points she hoped would stem their conversation from a singular focus into a more elaborate discussion on mutual growth. Speaking out fueled her nervous energy. She picked up her phone, hesitated, then dialed her best friend, Mia. As Mia's familiar voice crackled through the receiver, Sarah exhaled deeply. They discussed everything: art, ambitions, and anxieties. Mia's unwavering support lifted a portion of the weight off Sarah's shoulders. "You're not just an artist, Sarah. You're carving out your own place in this world, with or without him," she insisted. Those words became a solid anchor, allowing Sarah's burgeoning confidence to find expression. Later that evening, Sarah revisited her art, standing before her canvas. The swirling colors spoke volumes, as she invited her emotions to collide in a crescendo of intent. Each stroke was infused with her determination, a commitment to authenticity that would not buckle under her father's ambitions. She stood firm, knowing that art was not solely a medium of expression, it was a weapon of empowerment. That transformative moment reshaped her nerves from anxiety to resolve. Tomorrow was not just a presentation, it was her declaration of independence, a statement of purpose that could bridge the chasm between her vision and her father's expectations. As she prepared for bed, her thoughts rallied around one mantra: "This is my story." Yet, deep beneath the surface, a new fear simmered. What if this declaration only fueled the divide? With the message from her father still looming in her mind, she drifted to sleep, unsure of what the next day would bring. But one thing was certain: the time had come to face her father's expectations head-on. Would the sincerity of her voice cut through the fog of his vision, or would it send her retreating into silence once more? Tomorrow held the promise of clarity or chaos, and Sarah was ready to take that chance. The sun crested over the horizon, spilling golden light into Sarah's studio, transforming her chaotic space into a canvas of possibility. As she rubbed the remnants of sleep from her eyes, the haunting anxiety of yesterday's uncertainty shifted into a palpable determination. Today wasn't about her father's expectations. It was about her narrative, her art, her identity, her voice. Sarah took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. The internal dialogue that had plagued her for so long now felt like a fight she was ready to win. Standing before her canvas, she observed each stroke she had made over the last weeks, layers of color harboring her journey, her fears, and her ambitions. This was more than paint and brushes. It was the storm of emotions that swirled inside her, finally finding an outlet. Time slipped away as she worked, absorbed in her vision, but the clock ticking down the minutes reminded her that there were still details to polish: her presentation notes, her outfit, her speech. Those were the tools that would help her carve her place in the conversation. She shuffled papers, her fingers brushing over the carefully crafted points she wanted to convey. What would she lead with? She needed to evoke curiosity, to invite her audience into her world, yet part of her hesitated with the familiar specter of doubt. No matter how many times she rehearsed in front of the mirror, the words felt fragile in her throat. Was she truly ready to voice her thoughts in a space that had once felt dominated by her father's legacy? The fear prompted a retreat, and her mind spun with scenarios that could transpire later that day. Each imagined confrontation was a potential blow to the delicate bridge she aimed to build. Yet another part of her challenged that narrative. What if this was an opportunity to be seen, understood, and valued not only as her father's daughter, but as an artist in her own right? With newfound resolve, Sarah decided she wasn't merely stepping onto a stage. She was challenging a long-standing perception of herself. The conversation could pivot on vulnerability, a daring approach, but it was her truth, and there was power in that realization. The fridge buzzed with the hum of a timer, pulling her back focus. The moment she prepared Mia's muffins had come something familiar to soothe her nerves before she faced the unpredictable. Dressed in her chosen outfit, a blend of professional elegance with a splash of her artistic flair, she glanced in the mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. In her eyes, she saw determination mingling with the remnants of trepidation. She had a voice, and today, she would use it not to drown out her father's ambitions, but to harmonize with them. As she stepped outside, the cool morning air invigorated her senses. The world felt alive, vibrant, much like the art she longed to share. Each step toward the venue was a rite of passage. Each heartbeat resonated with purpose. She could visualize herself standing there, sharing her passion, weaving an intricate tale of her artistic vision, and inviting the audience to join her revolution of creativity. But as she drew closer to the venue, a new wave of uncertainty swept over her. What if her father's approach overshadowed her moment? What if he didn't grasp her narrative or dismissed her attempts at independence? Just the thought sent a shiver down her spine. He loomed in her mind, a formidable presence even from a distance. Upon entering the auditorium, seeing the seats fill with faces both familiar and foreign, she felt the weight of anticipation settle on her shoulders. A self-imposed pressure loomed. The stakes felt higher than they were moments ago, yet deep down stirred the whisper of her bravado. This was not only for her father, it was for all the artists seeking their own truth. The doors swung open, and her heartbeat quickened. Would she finally break the chains of expectation, or would she once again find herself retreating into silence? With a swift intake of breath, she crossed the threshold onto the stage, ready to face her fears and reclaim her voice. But unbeknownst to her, the moments ahead would challenge everything she understood about ambition and legacy, and that truth would unfold in ways she never could have foreseen. As the spotlight illuminated her like a beacon, Sarah stood frozen for a heartbeat, absorbing the collective energy of the audience. She could feel the weight of their expectations press down upon her, a blanket of scrutiny waiting to smother her resolve. This was a crucible of sorts, one that could either forge her identity or leave her fragmented in the rubble of doubt. The first words spilled hesitantly from her lips, a tremor of vulnerability weaving through her voice. "Thank you all for being here." She paused, allowing herself to breathe in the atmosphere. There was a certain warmth in their gaze and unspoken encouragement that birthed a flicker of confidence within her. With every passing second, the initial shock of intimidation dulled, and she felt slightly more rooted in her intention. As she unfolded her carefully crafted narrative, a shift began to transpire. The weight of expectation morphed into an unexpected opportunity for dialogue. She orated her artistic journey not merely as a function of her father's legacy, but as an exploration of her internal landscape, her healing, and her hunger for authenticity. Each brushstroke told a story, unleashing the emotions she had long concealed and allowing them to dance freely in the open air. Then came the question. Her father, seated in the front row, raised a hand, an authoritative gesture that sent a shiver down her spine. This was the moment. She could see the concern etched on his features, the need to regain control of the narrative. Sarah, What is it you think you're trying to prove? His tone cut through the room, drawing palpable tension. For a split second, she hesitated. This was not just a challenge to her worth as an artist, but an interrogation of her very essence. The echoes of doubt surged within her, clamoring for dominance, yet her resolve began to crystallize. She could choose to retreat, to fortify her defenses, or she could seize this moment a chance to reclaim her voice fully. How can I prove anything if I'm not honest about who I am? The words flowed out, bold and raw. She saw the flicker of surprise in her father's eyes, a crack in the armor he had so carefully constructed. This was a reflection of her evolution, the delicate threads of vulnerability interweaving strength in a tapestry of self-expression. The audience shifted. An electric silence filled the room, stitched together by shared anticipation, waiting to see how the father-daughter dynamic would play out. Sarah pressed on, weaving the audience into her narrative as her voice grew stronger. I am not just the CEO's daughter. I am an artist, and my story deserves to be heard. I want to explore the depths of my identity rather than live under the shadow of someone else's expectations. The air thickened with unspoken tension, but the rumbles of approval soon rolled through the audience, a potent affirmation for her bravery. She had crossed a threshold that she had never known existed, and instead of shrinking away, she was growing. Yet even in this pivotal moment, doubt lurked at the edges of her consciousness. Still, as she spoke ardently about the passion that motivated her to paint, and the memories tied to each piece, she uncovered new layers of her identity. The realization hit her. Her art was more than just colors on canvas. It was a declaration of independence, a loud proclamation that she was forging her own path. With every word, Sarah built an undeniable connection with the audience, yet her father's presence loomed ever large. He seemed to grapple with an expression that mingled confusion and concern, wrestling with her nascent courage and his deep-rooted expectations. What side of her narrative was he truly rooting for? Finally, she wrapped up her presentation. The applause resonated through the auditorium like a bomb, healing her bruised spirit and igniting a flame of determination within her. But as she descended from the stage, a heavy thought lingered. This was just the beginning. She had confronted her father, but as the applause faded, a vast world of resistance still lay ahead. Would she be able to sustain her newfound strength in the days to come, or would fear claw its way back into her heart? The path ahead was unclear, filled with challenges yet unrealized, and she would need to continue to fight for her voice, every step of the way. As she strode down the aisle, she caught her breath, preparing for the next confrontation that awaited her. What awaited was an unexpected twist that could unravel everything she had just achieved. The echo of applause faded behind her as Sarah stepped into the dimly lit corridor, a sanctuary from the intense spotlight that had only just released her. Thoughts swirled around her mind like dissonant harmonies. Had she truly delivered a performance that resonated? An exhilarating energy surged through her, yet it was counterbalanced by an undercurrent of uncertainty, a nagging fear that the momentary triumph might morph into another version of her father's expectations. As she navigated the familiar halls, she stopped to gaze at the portraits hanging on the walls, each one a reminder of the lineage she belonged to. They stared back, faces of power and prestige, framed with an air of unyielding authority. She wondered if any of them had fought for their own voice. Did they all walk paths intersected so heavily with legacy that their own desires became secondary? It was a haunting reflection, one that stirred her determination to carve her own niche even more fervently. "Sarah!" A voice jolted her from her reverie. It was Clara, her closest friend and a fellow artist, who rushed towards her with an intangible excitement. "You were incredible out there. I think you really shifted something." "I hope so," Sarah replied, the joy in Clara's eyes contrasting her lingering self-doubt. Clara tilted her head, a knowing glint in her gaze. "You know this is different, right? You're claiming your identity. But have you thought about what happens next? Your father, he is not going to take this lightly. The mention of her father sank heavily in her stomach. His foreboding presence had always loomed like an immovable statue, one she'd recently begun to challenge. I can't keep pretending to fit into the mold he created for me, Sarah murmured. I have to embrace who I am. Then what is stopping you? You've taken the first step, Clara urged, her enthusiasm bubbling over. What if you use your art to provoke deeper discussions, to push boundaries? You could lead a workshop or start a community project. The thought struck Sarah like a lightning bolt. Was she ready to engage with the world beyond the confines of her father's expectation? Her heart raced at the idea, but then doubt washed over her, temporarily stalling her momentum. What if her father intervened? Would he view any defiance on her part as a threat? Clara, what if he shuts me down? What if I lose everything? She felt her voice taper off, uncertainty swirling around her again. Or what if you reveal who you really are and inspire others doing the same? What would losing everything really mean if you gain your true self? Clara's words sliced through the haze. Sarah stared at her friend, a realization dawning. Each moment of doubt was an invitation to redefine herself. Could she embrace this uncertainty? She felt the urgency rising, an opportunity to let her voice resonate even louder. The pathway to true independence lay ahead, but it would not be without strife. With newfound resolve, she began to articulate a plan in her mind. A series of workshops that connected art with identity? A conduit for dialogue that challenged conventions? It felt right. Yet, even as the vision percolated within her, another realization loomed close. A shadow of her father's voice echoed once again, demanding compliance, discouraging rebellion. What if he underestimated her resolve and saw only the barriers? Fear gripped her, a visceral reminder that the struggle for authentic self-expression could yield fierce opposition. But wasn't he the essence of her art, birthed from conflict? As Clara watched her with encouraging eyes, something tightened within Sarah's chest. The moment had come to confront not only the resistance from the world, but also the lingering chains of her father's expectations. She felt the swirling doubts shift toward a sharpened determination. I'll do it, Sarah finally declared, her voice steady and purposeful, resonating like a bell in the stillness of the corridor. I'll create those workshops. I'll reclaim my narrative. Clara's face lit up with joy, but as waves of fear attempted to crash over Sarah. Once more, she realized the most daunting confrontation awaited her at home. The thought sent a shiver down her spine, but she was ready. She would face her father. Tomorrow would be the day everything could change. As she stepped forward with Clara's enthusiastic support, a new question loomed large. Would her father accept this new chapter, or would he fight tooth and nail to reinforce the confines of his legacy? The sun rose with piercing intensity the next morning, but instead of warming her, it only intensified the fire of apprehension that churned within Sarah. She mulled over her plan as she dressed, the fabric of her clothes feeling heavy against her skin, each piece a reminder of the expectations that had long bound her. She stared into the mirror, trying to extract confidence from her reflection. Beneath the surface of her composure, another duel raged, the portion of herself that wanted to rise above her upbringing and fully realize her vision clashed wrathfully with the part that feared confrontation and rejection. The scars of her father's disapproval were still visible, etched in every shy laugh she had stifled and every dream she'd hidden away in the dark recesses of her mind. Determined to confront her father, she rehearsed her speech in her mind, the words shaping and reshaping like clay in her thoughts. Articulating her newfound resolve felt like preparing for battle, each articulation a weapon against fear. Yet, no matter how much she repeated her intentions, a chilling reality loomed over her. Would he listen, or would he dismiss her with a wave of his hand and expect her to revert to the dutiful daughter he had molded? The moment she stepped into the familiar confines of her home was like walking into a theater stuck in a never-ending, unpleasant play. The faint scent of polished wood greeted her, coupled with the subtle undercurrent of disapproval that seemed to seep from the walls, infused with memories wrapped in her father's expectations. She could almost hear his disapproving thoughts echoing in the air. "Sarah, there you are," he called out from his study, his tone a blend of authority and challenge. "I need to discuss next week's board meeting with you. I hope you've been practicing the presentation." She hesitated, feeling the weight of her decision come crashing down around her, but she couldn't let fear chain her back any longer. This was the pivotal moment to assert her true self, to show that her voice was no longer muffled beneath the layers of inadequacy he had imposed upon her. "Actually, Dad, there's something I want to talk about too," she said, her voice trembling but resolute as she made her way toward him. "I've decided to lead a series of workshops that explore art and identity." His brow furrowed deeply, recognition of her defiance flashing in his eyes. "Workshops? Under what pretense? You seem too focused on trivial matters rather than the serious aspects of your profession." "That wouldn't reflect well on you," he countered, disbelief etched on his face. The sting of his words hit hard, but Sarah had long since learned the narratives of dismissal. They no longer held any power over her. Instead of retreating, she drew closer, her pulse quickening with each assertion she made. "This is about more than just work," she pressed on, her voice rising with conviction. "It's about people, individuals, like me, who have felt the weight of expectations. I want to create a space where we can openly discuss our struggles, our identities, and how they intersect with our art. It's vital, and frankly, it's long overdue." The air between them became charged, thick with unspoken tension. An unsettling silence followed her declaration, punctuated only by the ticking clock on the wall that seemed to mock her anticipation. Her father's expression shifted from disbelief to something that resembled anger, but lingered just below the surface, an acknowledgement of a challenge. "Do you truly think you can defy our legacy so easily?" he finally spat, his voice low and calculated. "Those who rebel against tradition often find themselves alone. This isn't just about you, Sarah." "Exactly. It's about breaking the mold," she countered, desperation creeping into her voice. "I'm tired of feeling inferior, of feeling suffocated by what others expect of me. I want my art to speak for those who feel voiceless." In that moment, Sarah recognized the complexity of her father's authority. He wasn't merely a parent. He was the representation of everything she had fought against. She would not back down now, though the reverberations of her conviction made her nervous. Could she stand firm against the storm he would unleash? Taking a deep breath, she prepared for what could be the fight of her life, knowing that a new path had just opened before her. Little did she know, the confrontation ahead would not only test her independence, but also reveal unforeseen secrets that lay buried in her family legacy. Now, as the morning light streamed through the window, illuminating the distance between them, the real battle had just begun. Would her father cling to the past, or could their clash open the door to deeper revelations, both personal and familial? The atmosphere hung heavy with unresolved tension, and Sarah felt every second stretch as her father's silence loomed ominously. She could practically hear the gears of his mind turning, contemplating the implications of her statements. "Breaking the mold," he repeated, almost mockingly, his eyes narrowing in calculation. "Do you really believe that you have the luxury to explore such frivolities when there's a multi-million-dollar enterprise reliant on your contributions?" His response cut deep, and for a fleeting moment, doubt crept into her consciousness. Was she indeed being foolish? The weight of her father's expectations felt suffocating, yet the burgeoning flame of her ambition had started to overshadow the fear. "I've worked hard to earn my place in this organization," she replied, each word deliberately crafted. "This isn't just about personal satisfaction. It's about contributing in a meaningful way." In his incredulous gaze, Sarah read a flash of realization. Her father was not just opposing her choice. He was grappling with the idea of losing control over a narrative he had dictated for so long. It wasn't merely a battle of wills, but a struggle for autonomy. By hosting these workshops, you risk everything. Your credibility, your standing. Not to mention, you'll be pulling the focus away from the core objectives of the company. You plan on doing this for what? A handful of participants? His voice dripped with condescension. In that very moment, something shifted within her. She could feel the dormant aspirations within her bursting forth, demanding expression. Her hand subconsciously brushed the sketchbook tucked under her arm, a sanctuary for thoughts too precious to voice prior to this confrontation. It's more than just a handful, Dad. I'm talking about giving people the chance to express experiences that shape their identities. The fire in her voice grew more assertive. It's vital to understand how art can intersect with personal journeys. If we restrict our focus to profits and numbers, we lose the heart of what creativity can truly achieve. Those workshops could be transformative. Transformative? The only thing that will be transformed is your career at this company if you pursue this. He leaned back, arms crossed defiantly, as if he thought his stature alone could intimidate her. Sarah's heart raced, but she fought to steady her breathing. Each word she spoke was not merely a rebuttal, but a testament to the resolve that had knitted itself into her core. Maybe it's time for a change. Isn't that what this company needs? To adapt, to innovate? This isn't just about me rebelling against you. It's about creating a legacy that thrives on more than tradition. In that moment, she caught a flicker of something in his expression. Was it fear? But she couldn't linger on that thought. The stakes were rising higher than she ever anticipated. Expanding into the realms of art and identity was uncharted territory for her, but if it could connect her and countless others to the essence of who they were, then it was worth every ounce of struggle. What you propose risks everything we built, he warned, his voice lower yet urgent. You stand to lose everything. Or I could stand to gain freedom, she shot back. This is terrifying for me, but it's worse to live in your shadow, under your expectations. Silence enveloped the room, thick with static tension. It was unclear whether his desire to control the narrative would overpower her groundbreaking passion. Sarah's heart thudded loudly in her chest. The tightrope she was walking felt increasingly precarious, but she realized she could no longer let the fear of losing what she had dictate her future. The urge to explore her identity through artistic expression outweighed the shackles of parental approval. It was time to step into the light she had created for herself, and then, sensing the moment had shifted, a thought burgeoned within her. What if their conflict revealed more than old grievances? What if it unlocked the truths neither had ever dared to confront? Isn't it a time that we both explored who we are? She ventured, her voice softening, almost imploring. What do you truly envision for your legacy? Is it built on fear and control, or can it evolve into something where we both find our voices? Her father's gaze hardened, but a flicker of surprise betrayed him. This wasn't only a confrontation, it was an invitation to a deeper discussion, one that transcended their immediate conflict. If anything, her statement had thrown him off guard. But the question remained, would this forced honesty catalyze a breakthrough, or would it stifle her ambition once more under the weight of familial bile? Sarah held her breath, hoping to spark a dialogue that spanned generations. The real battle, she realized, had just begun, and the direction they moved from here was uncertain. As her father opened his mouth to respond, her heart pounded with anticipation. This could change everything. As Sarah stood before her father, the air between them crackled with tension, amplifying her growing sense of purpose. This was no longer merely about art or identity. It was a reckoning that could redefine their relationship. Every word exchanged became a brushstroke, painting a picture of confrontation that could either heal or fracture the bond they had for far too long taken for granted. Is it built on fear and control, or can it evolve into something where we both find our voices? The words hung in the silence, their resonance settling heavily in the room. Sarah held her breath, waiting for his response. She could see the gears turning in her father's mind, a war of ideals playing out in his expression, a mix of pride and defensiveness, fear and frustration. For a fleeting moment, the stern veneer of the corporate titan began to crack. "I want what is best for you, but you must understand this is a business built on tradition. There's a reason I've structured everything as I have." His voice was steadier now, laced with both concern and a hidden vulnerability. This was the moment for her. She gathered all her courage, the culmination of her artistic struggle and emotional journey coalescing into one clear declaration. "And it's time for that tradition to include new perspectives, Dad. I need you to see me not as your daughter or an extension of your ambitions, but as a creator with something valuable to contribute." Her heart raced with each word, feeling lighter, as though she were shedding the chains of expectation. There was a flicker in his eyes, a glimpse of realization. "You believe you can steer this company in such a different direction? That it's worth risking what we've built?" he asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "It's not just about steering the company," Sarah replied, her tone resolute. "It's about influencing lives, those who feel unheard, who are desperate for a space to validate their existence. These workshops, this initiative could prove that creativity intersects with commerce and personal narratives. They could reinvigorate our vision." As she spoke, Sarah felt both fear and excitement coursing through her veins. This was not merely an artistic launch. This was a declaration of her independence, a manifestation of everything she had worked toward. Did he comprehend the magnitude? Would he allow her this leap of faith? A brief silence followed, thick with the weight of their history. Watching him, she discerned a flicker of something deep within, a flicker she suddenly recognized as a father's concern cloaked in paternal expectation. "Maybe," he began hesitantly, "you might be onto something. But to step into this, you need to understand the risks, Sarah. Creative endeavors are unpredictable, especially in a corporate context." His tone softened, revealing the complexity woven into his authority. "I understand the risks better than anyone. But I also know the rewards," she insisted, determination hardening her voice. "This isn't just about me anymore. It's about creating something meaningful for others. It's about breaking the cycle of silence." A pause ensued, each second stretching to eternity, and then he sighed. "If you want to do this, then we'll need to construct a framework, a plan that doesn't jeopardize our core values." It was a concession, perhaps even a tentative bridge spanning the chasm that had long existed between them. Tears of overwhelming relief pricked at her eyes, but she fought them back fiercely. "Thank you," Sarah said simply, her heart swelling with pride. They weren't just opening lines of communication. They were forging a path toward possibility, a collaboration that could redefine their legacies. With renewed clarity, they began discussing how the workshops would not only reflect art but foster dialogues, engage the community, and blend her entrepreneurial spirit with his corporate wisdom. As plans began to unfold, it dawned on Sarah that her father's endorsement was not just necessary but transformative. This was the acceptance she had longed for. Days turned into weeks as they collaboratively shaped the workshops, her father providing guidance while allowing her creative vision to lead. Each session brought fresh faces and stories, weaving connections in ways Sarah had once feared might never happen. A local gallery even approached them about showcasing the combined efforts of her workshop participants, validating her belief in art's capability to foster unity. For the first time, Sarah felt like an architect of her own destiny. She had not only found her voice, but was recognized for it, earning respect from both her peers and those who had once viewed her with skepticism. Yet it was in silent moments with her father that yielded the most profound transformations. During a particularly candid dinner one evening, as they discussed the upcoming gallery opening, he positioned his fork down, looking directly at her. "I see it now, Sarah, the impact you're creating. I'm proud. The words hit with the weight of validation she had chased for years, and released a decade of pent-up emotion. Here was her solid confidence forged through struggle, her recognized competence as an artist, and her established position as a purposeful leader, not just the CEO's daughter, but as a transformative figure in her own right. Sarah smiled, her spirit soaring free from the binds of expectation. The culmination of her journey bore tangible results, shifting her understanding of personal success. She wasn't merely stepping into the shadows of her father's legacy. She was iterating on it, crafting a new chapter where their voices resonated in a harmony never thought possible. In that moment of clarity, she embraced the work ahead, aware that it would require ongoing advocacy for her identity and ambitions. But she stood ready, a fully formed individual, confident in her pursuit of creating spaces for her voice and the voices of others. This was her achievement, rooted in growth and authentic personal fulfillment, a defining experience that proved the value of stepping into vulnerability and owning her narrative. And it all began with that one bold step, a step towards reclaiming her voice. Now, as the journey continues, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this journey with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.